Okay, so hi, I'm Nicole, founder of the Village Maternity Services, and for this interrogation, I'm on with Simone Glinton, founder of Out of Box Events and Weddings. So, Simone, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks
Kind
for
of just
having me.
introduce yourself to our viewers, to our listeners. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're currently doing.
Okay. Well, my name is Simone Glinton, and I am, like she said, the owner, operator of Out of Box Events and Weddings. So basically, Out of Box Events and Weddings, we are wedding coordinators, planners, destination wedding coordinators and planners, and honeymoons. And we also have a small t-shirt line called Love and T-shirts. So we basically assist our clients with planning their wedding, executing the day of, coordinating, and ultimately planning their honeymoon as well. So we try to provide a full experience for all of our clients.
Okay, that is awesome. Okay, so you're an entrepreneur, you're a mogul in the making. When you were pregnant, just tell us a little bit about your son, how old he is, like how long ago this was. What was your current situation like when you were pregnant? Married, single? Like, just tell us about your life then during that time. Were you working, going back to work, going to school? Just give our listeners a little bit of insight into Simone's life, era, pre-era Darius, and what your life looked like then.
Okay, perfect. So, when I was after having my son, I was a student. I was going to Miami-Dade College, and I was working a very small job on campus. And I decided to, after I had my son, that I wanted to, of course, make more money. I was a single mom on top of that, so I decided to take on a full-time job and work nights because it was convenient. My mom, she's a school teacher, so during the day I was able to stay home with my son, and during the night from 6:30 to 3 a.m. I would go to work. But the good news was is that I didn't have to worry about things like daycare because my mom, I would have him in the daytime and my mother would have him at night. So that was like the beginning of my experience, I guess. And I finally decided, with working a full-time job and doing 40 hours, of course, you're tired and you're sleepy all the time. And of course, I was going to school as well, full time. I continued going to school. I didn't stop. Yep.
Okay, so school, working. So when Darius was born, were you able to breastfeed right away?
Not immediately because I would say for the first week, 2 weeks, I didn't breastfeed him because he was in the ICU. But well, I take that back. It was more like a week, and when he was able, when they took him off of whatever they had him on, the nurses did help me to breastfeed. They did latch him on, but it wasn't immediately, like the day after. It was a couple days. I would say maybe almost a week later, honestly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you breastfed, but it was about a week later. The nurses
hmm
helped you. Were you able to? Because right now the recommendation from the World Health Organization is to exclusively breastfeed for like the first 6 months. Were you able to accomplish that?
Um, yes and no. I mean, here was the situation. I breastfed him throughout the day. It was easier once I came home to breastfeed him at night. He was, I still introduced him into formula, but mostly, especially to save on cost, I breastfed.
Okay, so at that time, like I'm in school, I'm working a 40-hour work week mom. How did you juggle? Because I found out with a lot of moms, once they return to work, they have issues with trying to breastfeed. Like it becomes difficult or nearly impossible. So describe your situation for us, like when you returned to work. Did you breastfeed? Did you pump while you were at work? How were you able to like
No,
maintain your milk volume and still working a 40-hour work week?
so my pump decided to break. It never worked from the very beginning. And at the time, I don't know if they still allow this, but you weren't allowed to return it. Once you broke whatever seal was on it, you couldn't return it. And so that kind of like put a bad taste in my mouth for pumps. I didn't want to invest another $100 or so in another pump, and then it just didn't work. So I decided that I was just going to breastfeed. And when I did go back to work, after a couple of weeks, and I kind of went back to work almost immediately. Also, I had gotten the new job, and I was working 40 hours and everything like that. I don't know. I just kind of like snuck out. My where my mom lived and my son was at during the evening, it was very quick for me to disappear and kind of like, so when it just got too heavy, honestly, I would take a lunch break. I would go on extended 15-minute breaks. I would, you know, and when they asked me, when I was questioned, because you do get the question, I'd be like, I have to go breastfeed my baby. Like, I have to go. My breasts are hurting. I'm leaving. So I mean, luckily for me, I had a more, my boss, they were understanding to that. But, I didn't have a pump, so there was no pumping. And then when, of course, I got home at 3 a.m., he would usually be up. He didn't sleep through the night for an entire year. So he would usually be up waiting for me, and I would breastfeed him, relieve myself again. And, it continued like that for the entire year that, I breastfed him.
So you were blessed enough to have a sort of flexible job where you could come in and out. Do you think if your job was a little bit more stringent, like you were like in meetings all day and things like that, do you think you would be able to have breastfed for as long as you did?
Probably not, unless you have, like I said, unless you have like a pump where you can maybe take it to work with you, and then you would need like storage, like where you're gonna put it after you pump it and everything like that. So probably not. I don't think like it would have lasted that long, but thank goodness it did. He was a healthy kid. I can honestly say he never got sick, never had a runny nose, ear infection, nothing. Nothing. And it was because I attested to the fact that I breastfed him for the entire year, his first year.
Absolutely.
And he didn't go to daycare on top of that. So
absolutely. Okay, so for your breastfeeding experience, what would you say came a lot easier than you expected, and what was a lot more difficult than you thought it would be?
Easier, once I latching him on, once you get it, you kind of don't forget how to do it and everything like that. So initially it was a little frustrating, because I think that the baby sometimes gets frustrated, especially if there's nothing, you're not putting him on correctly, just kind of like latches off and starts wailing at you. But that was initially difficult, and then it got easier with time and everything like that. And what was just easy? I mean, it's Mother Nature, so it fits. So I don't know. It just kind of like, yeah, I don't really think there was anything seriously hard. It all just kind of came naturally. Initially, as a new mom, never done it before. If I do, once I do it again, I'm sure it'll be like riding a bike. You just never forget. So initially a little difficult, but once you got it, it was just like, okay. And I never denied him the access, unless I was not there. So with him, even crawling around, if he, wanted me to, it's an intimate moment between baby and mom. And so, if he wanted to just drop his toys and get on the boo-boo, that's what we called it, the boo-boo. I would just, come, like, let's go. Like, it wasn't a moment. It was never an inappropriate moment. I did it in restaurants and everything like that. I didn't care who was looking.
That's
my moment with my baby. So you can go do whatever you want to do.
Right.
So.
Okay, so I work with breastfeeding moms. I teach breastfeeding, and a lot of moms that I find now who want to breastfeed, they have like this dilemma where they find what they feel is where their moms didn't breastfeed, like when they were infants, they were like formula fed babies, and that we find a lot here in the U.S. Right, but a lot of our listeners don't know that you weren't born and raised here. You're born and raised in the Bahamas, so sometimes there's like a cultural difference. So do you feel as if like your mom being part of that support system and having, seen breastfeeding so much growing up, how do you think that affected you and your ability to breastfeed, like without having to go to like these classes and things like that, versus women who, didn't necessarily grow up in a culture where breastfeeding was the norm? And also, was your mom a part of it? Who was your support system?
So my mom was definitely the support system. She insisted upon it. There was just no way around it. You are like, you're going to breastfeed him. End of story. Well, number one, I was personally breastfed by my mom until I was 3, almost 4 years old. So the fact that I did it for a year, she was not, she was happy but not happy. I was like, listen, I did it. So it was that aspect, because I breastfed for almost 4 years, of my life,
Mhm.
and I just did it for a year with my son. So she was a huge support system, and it was a moment even between me and her because, if I was doing something incorrectly or something like that, I didn't mind her trying to assist me the best way, whether it was to touch my breast or just, show me that, hold it up and different things like that. And it's something that's very common, you breastfeed your baby, like and I understand why. Like I said, it's a very intimate moment between
Mhm.
mom and baby, and that's like an unbreakable bond. Like you just have to see
Absolutely.
that when they're there, latched on, and they're just looking up at you, and they're smiling while your boob is in their mouth, and they're just
Mhm.
like touching your boob and just very, it's very intimate. Or you're laying down, and it's a very nice moment to have with your baby.
I must say, because I didn't do extended breastfeeding either. I must say, like, out of all the things that I missed, as far as like my son being infant, like the breastfeeding is like the one thing, because you really can't, you're not gonna get it back, So it's like a
No,
moment in time, and like you said, it's like a bond and it's an intimate moment. Like that bond is unbreakable. So absolutely, that's
yeah.
one thing I miss the most. Okay, so last question: if you could give new moms one piece of advice, like what would that one piece of advice be to help them on their breastfeeding journeys?
Not to give up, that just because your nipples are cracking and looks like they're about to fall off, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to fall off. Like, God didn't create us for our nipples to fall off. It's going to be okay. Your nipples are going to adjust to, the pressure and different things like that. And not to give up, because once you see something like that, like there's a bruise on your nipple or something, or if he has teeth, then he starts biting you, that you want to say, oh my God, I'm done with this. No, stick with it. Stick with it. Don't give up, and go to support groups with other moms who are nursing their children, and do it for as long as you can. Because
Hmm.
I think in society people kind of like become judgmental, and I don't
Hmm.
understand why we take advice from people who don't have kids. So it's very, it's okay if it's a 2-year-old and he or she is still breastfeeding. It's not going to traumatize him or her or anything like that. So stick with it. Do it for as long as you can, as long as the baby will accept it, and don't give up.
You hear that, moms? Don't give up and don't judge. Like that. I thank you so much, Simone, for saying that, because that is like my take-home message for like however long you're able to breastfeed. If you're only able to do it for 3 months because your life just not doesn't allow it, and you breastfeed like once a day and night before they go to bed, or you do it for 2 years or 3 years like your mom did. Like no judgment and don't give up. Well, thank you so much, Simone Glinton of Out of Box Events and Weddings, for joining us today for this interrogation.
Thank
I
you.
know our moms are absolutely going to like take those pieces of knowledge that you just gave them as like little golden nuggets and take it with them. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All
Thanks
right.
for having me. Bye.